Hey everyone, it's Scott Monkern again with another one of my reviews. Today we're going to take a look at Mystic Vale by AEG, Alderock Entertainment Group. It is a card building game that's got some kind of unique mechanics that we've never seen before in a game. Let's take a look at the game. So Mystic Vale is a card building game where the Earth has been ravaged by pollution and just misuse, and the Druid Council has designated us, the four of us druids in the game, or less, 2 to 4 druids, to rebuild the land, to restore it using special powers and special abilities that let us heal the land. And through a series of card plays and building of cards, we rebuild the land. So that's the game. It plays in about an hour. I will tell you that I really like it. I'll compare it to some other games later on so you kind of get a feeling for what it's like. One of the most interesting things about this game and what makes it unique, in my opinion, are the components. So we're going to start by talking about the components and what they are. So let's start by talking about the components. I want to start by saying, as far as I'm concerned, the components for this game are absolutely beautiful. It's some of the most beautiful artwork and kind of general well-done components I've seen in a simple card game. It's not so simple, but in a card game in a long time. Now, the first thing I always talk about is the rulebook. The rulebook comes, it's 24 pages long. It's nice and big and well printed, easy to understand, really easy to understand and well explained. The only complaint I had about the rulebook was I didn't think it was stapled very well, and the interior pages, one set of them came out. So that's the rule book. It comes with player aid cards. One card for each player. Explains all the iconography, which is actually pretty important in this game, and gives you a basic set of the rules. So those are the player book and the rules. Next, let's talk about the cards. And the cards are really the important part of the game. There's some tokens we'll talk about at the end, but really the cards are the important part. Every player gets a player deck starting of 20 cards. And because of the game, the AEG gives you sleeves for the game. Now, the cards themselves, when you first buy them, the backs are very pretty. Each player has their own color. Some of them are completely blank on one side. Some of them have individual symbols on them, and they're sleeved. Now, they're tarot card size, so these are not tiny cards they printed. These are big, nice cards, and that's important because the artwork demands that this level of attention be paid to the cards. So tarot-sized player deck cards is where we start. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is what we call the advancement cards. And the advancement cards are kind of what makes this game different from everything else. The advancement cards are transparent, and you'll see them here on the screen, and each of them includes a special ability, and we'll talk about how that works when we get into gameplay. So the only other place I've seen cards quite similar to this are Gloom, but Gloom does it very differently because you're laying stuff on top of each other and it's a little bit different. Here, you're ultimately going to take these advancement cards and add them to your player deck on individual cards. Veil cards are basically special ability and victory point cards that you can buy with a set of mechanics inside the game that let you do interesting special things. Now, the advancement cards also give you special abilities. These tend to be a little bit high power and kind of longer term special abilities. And these are also solid cards. You don't play them on top of cards like you do with the advancement cards. They're kind of separate and long-term abilities. They're very pretty. Again, they're tarot card style cards and have absolutely beautiful and stunning artwork. And they come in a level 1 and level 2 abilities. So let's talk a little bit about the artwork. In fact, I would say let's not talk a little bit about the artwork. Let's talk a lot about the artwork. The artwork for this game is just beautiful, and it's intended to be so. This is a game, one of those games where the art of the game is incredibly important. The other game I kind of parallel this to is if you think about Tokaido, its artwork is very important. The other one, which I was actually just running on Saturday, was In the Name of Odin. Also, the artwork for the game is incredibly important. So I would say the artwork for this game is absolutely beautiful. It's very, very mellow, very pretty, very artistic. I had to think about the movie Avatar. I was watching it the other day too, but it has that kind of a feel to it. So absolutely beautiful artwork. If you're someone who appreciates good artwork in games, that alone is enough to get you to buy the game. So let's talk about the rule book, and along with that, the player aid. The two kind of go hand in hand. The rulebook here is a very pretty rulebook, just like with everything else. It's 24 pages long. Really, only the first 13 pages are important, and about the first 4 or 5 pages are about setting it up, because setting it up is a little bit, not confusing, but a little bit complicated. You have multiple decks, so on and so forth. Now, the rulebook does a really good job of explaining how the cards work. This has got an entirely different set of mechanics that I've never seen in a game before in terms of the way you handle the card building. And so the rulebook does a really good job of explaining how that process works. And I had no problems after reading the rules once, going through and playing and demoing for other people and showing how it worked. It's very, very easy. So the rulebook is very clear. The player aid is also very clear. One side explains all the iconography and how it works. And there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10 icons total. Here's the player aid. It's got 10 cards. And then the other side of the card explains how play works. Play occurs in four phases. And the phases are a little bit unusual. They're kind of a little strange. So the rulebook does a really good job of explaining things. It also does a good job of explaining setup pretty well. I think the only thing which I think is kind of a downside of the rulebook, other than its size, it's very big, but it's because it's supposed to be pretty, is that there's a mechanic here that's kind of different, and I'll explain to it, where you don't draw at the beginning of your turn. You don't lay out cards at the beginning of your turn. You actually lay them out at the end of your turn. And the reason for that is that it lets you prepare for the next round. You can, while the other players are playing, it lets you prepare for the next round. I don't think they did a very good job they explained it well, they didn't explain why well, and I wish they had. Other than that, rulebook definitely explains things well. The player aid definitely works very well, and so, yeah, A+ on the rulebook. So let's talk a little bit about the theme and how it works before we get into actual playing the game and the rules. So the theme here, which I talked about at the beginning, is we're all playing druids who are trying to build a better land, a very environmentalist, very ecological style game. I'd say very tree hugger kind of thing, but it is very much kind of that environmentalist kind of philosophy. We're trying to heal the earth. The theme is really good, and I actually found it really compelling. Not from a politics standpoint, but just it was a feel-good kind of game. I had a hard time, and I guess I shouldn't say I have a hard time. I found myself thinking about Tokaido as well when I thought about this game, where I tell people Tokaido, when you play it, well, yes, winning the game is important. It's really not about winning the game. Tokaido is about the experience of going down the trail and all the stuff you're going to see and doing the paintings and all that kind of stuff. And the same is true for Mystic Vale, which is building the cards and getting the veils and all that kind of stuff and getting those diamonds and stuff. And we'll talk more about that later on with victory points. Is really kind of the prettiness of the game is what you revel in. There's not a lot of player interaction in this game. In fact, there's virtually none, other than being the first one to get the victory points as you're collecting them. You don't see a lot of, in fact, I can't think of any take that style mechanics where you're interacting with other players. In fact, we'll talk about when we get into playing the game that actually at the end of your turn, what you do is you lay out your cards and start preparing for the next turn. So there's not a lot of player interaction here because you spend most of your time just kind of reveling and enjoying the artwork of the cards and the ability of the cards and the cool stuff that you played with the cards. Now, is it a pasted on theme? I actually don't think so. Is that, I mean, at some level it kind of is. Could you use these same mechanics somewhere else? Absolutely. AEG does plan to do that later on in the year, is what I hear. But I think the theme is really kind of integral to the play and what you're doing. You don't feel like, oh, they're just kind of artificial and they really don't mean much of anything like I felt with some other games lately. They do seem to be closely tied together. Could I take the mechanics and separate them out? Sure, absolutely could do that. Do I think they've done a pretty good job of tying them together? Yeah, I think they've done a good job of taking a very beautiful set of artwork and a very pretty theme, wrapping a set of mechanics around it that kind of make you feel like you're doing it. But again, yeah, you could separate them. I think that they're tied pretty well together, though. So let's talk a little bit about playing the game. Actually talk a lot about playing the game. But before we get into the step-by-step instructions, one of the things we want to be aware of is the mechanics of how the card building works, because that's integral and important part of the game. The way the card building works is you're going to take a card off of the tableau, the field in the middle, um, and you spend points, mana points, to buy those cards. Then once you've bought that, it's called an advancement card. You slide it into one of your cards, and it fills up. Each card has 3 slots, a top, a medium, and a bottom. When you buy it, each card has either it's a top ability, a medium ability, or a lower ability, and you slide it into a card which doesn't have a slot before of the cards in your field. And when you add something to a card, you don't get that power right away, but when you shuffle the deck, and then you play it again, you now add that ability, whether it be additional mana, whether it be decay, which we'll talk about, or whether it be some other weird special ability such as victory points, you now get to use that. So your cards improve with time. And there are a couple of strategies with respect to it that are kind of interesting. One strategy is you build a few really, really powerful cards and you just burn through your deck as quickly as you can to get to those really powerful cards. That's one option. Or you build a bunch of kind of moderate level cards knowing that, okay, I'm not going to have this one big turn where I'm going to do 5,000 actions, but I'm going to get consistent actions throughout the turn. It's kind of an interesting strategy. We talked about it at Congress of Gamers, where I played a couple rounds of this, and everybody said, yeah, there's kind of 2 ways you could approach this, and we're not sure which way is better. I've seen kind of both ways work pretty well and seen people win both ways. So that's the card building aspect and how it works. Is you take the clear insert, you slide it into the sleeve card, and each card becomes more powerful. Now, the way the game is played in terms of mechanics is on your turn, you have your deck. You flip out cards until you see 3 decay symbols. 3. Now, decay symbols are these little red trees indicating that your property is decaying. Now, once you've done that on your turn, you take the last decay symbol and put it on the card with a decay symbol and put it on the top of your deck. The rest all go into your field. Now, at this point, you have an option. You can either push your luck, take that one card, move it down to your playfield, and flip up another. Or you can stop and play with the cards you've got in your field. If you push your luck, you take that card on the top, move it down, flip up a new card. Now, if that card has a decay symbol on it, your turn is immediately over. You get a little special ability where you get 1 additional mana the next time you play, time your turn hits around. But basically, you pretty much lose your turn. If you don't lose your turn, you have the option of doing the same thing. So you can push your luck quite a bit, and depending upon how you structure your cards, I actually had one game where a guy had structured his cards in such a way that he could do like 16 cards in a row. It was kind of crazy. So that's that. So once you've got your field, you then turn around and play your cards. Your cards have special abilities on them they can use, and they've got mana points. And you take your mana points and you buy cards in the main play area. You can buy those cards in the main play area. Cards will also have element symbols on them, paws and plants and so on and so forth. Let you buy Vale cards. You can buy 2 of the advancement cards and put them on any cards that are in your field, and you can buy as many Vale cards as you have points for. Normally you only have points for 1 or 2, and at the beginning you don't have any. So that's a play, and then at the end of your turn, you take your cards that you've just used, put them in the discard pile, and at the end of your turn, you deal up till you have those 3 decay again. This is what's a little unusual, is you don't flip those cards up at the beginning of your turn except for on your first round. You do it at the end of your turn so you can be thinking about what you're going to do on your next round, because there are a lot of decisions to be made. And so you got to decide, am I going to push, am I not going to push, so on and so forth. So that's it. You play until there's a pile of victory points. Some of the cards will give you victory points, and you get them. When all those victory point chits are gone, the game is over. Now, you also can get victory points that are awarded at the end of the game. So you have those little chit victory points, and you have end of game victory points. You total all those up, the person with the highest number wins. So that's basically the way the game is played. There's not a lot of interaction, I will tell you that to begin with. Now, when I play, we do talk a lot with other people, but it's not so much I'm going to interfere with you, or I got you, blah, blah, blah. It's about, well, you know what, you could do this, or wow, that's really pretty, or you know what, you want to consider this, talking about strategies. I find it interesting that in a game where you do have a winner and loser, you talk strategies with them. So it's kind of neat that way. Honestly, the way the game works is I don't think winning is the important thing about the game. Yes, winning, people say, oh yeah, winning's important. There's some games where winning is important. I really don't think that's what Mystic Vale is about. I think Mystic Vale is really about playing the game and just enjoying the artwork and the beauty in the game. Winning is purely kind of incidental to the game. So that's kind of the way the mechanics of the game work. So let's talk about what I think about this game. I really, really like this game. Now, I'll also say there are a lot of really good games that have come out lately. This is one of the games I really like. First of all, it's really easy to teach. There are a couple of games I've gotten lately where it's been really complicated rules and hard to teach. This one, the rules are really easy to teach. It has a unique set of mechanics. This is not just another deck builder out there. There's so many deck builders out there. They're all good. Well, not all of them are good, but most of them are good at their own layer. But it's just unique because it's not about deck building, it's about card building. And the clear plastic that you insert and the way you insert it inside the sleeves is really a unique mechanic, and it gives you it's a puzzle. And so you say, oh my goodness, I've only got this card, and it's got the top and the bottom, and I need a middle, and what middles can I buy, and how much are they going to cost, and how is it going to affect, and what powers are we going to add, and is it going to cancel stuff out, and is it going to be good? It's a really good puzzling game with a lot of choices associated with it, which, given that when you think about it, there's simply not much there in terms of material, is really interesting. If you're a competitive person, I'm not sure whether this is the game for you. There are lots of good competitive games out there. I think this game is actually much more just about experiencing the cards, experiencing building cool decks. Now, if you're someone who's an engine builder, I've got some friends that say they like to build good engines. This is a really good engine building game because you're building cards that, as you play through the game, get more and more powerful. In fact, I tell people the first couple of rounds, particularly if you've never played before, can be really frustrating because you're either busting out or you're not getting much power, and it takes you really about your third turn till your cards really start to begin to have some interesting power and some interesting abilities. So, if you're an engine builder kind of person, really interesting. If you like new and unusual mechanics, really interesting. If you're hyper competitive, I think you're just going to find, unless you're playing with other hyper-competitive people, I think you're going to find it dull. I think it's a lot like Tokaido in that respect. I know I mentioned Tokaido earlier. I always say Tokaido is not about the winning, it's about the play experience as well. I know Tokaido, there's a winner, yeah, but that's not what's important about the game. So, I personally love the game. I think it's a terrific game. It's very unique. It's not your standard deck builder. It's something we've never seen before. I'm going to be very curious to see what AEG does with their expansion when it comes out, and they think they're coming out with a couple more games, at least one more game, based upon similar overlay style mechanics. So that is Mystic Vale in a nutshell.